features characters like a prehistoric ape-man, an idiot time traveler, and a talking duck. And sometimes weird characters like politicians. In addition to his weekly comic strip, The New Yorker has published full-page colored cartoons by Bolling, and original comics have been published in magazines such as Nickelodeon. Have you guys read Nickelodeon magazine? No? You might want to check it out. It's kind of cool. Mad Magazine, ESPN's magazine, and Harper's. So, Ruben is here to talk about his book series, the EMU Club. He is also the president of the Mystery Club, which was founded when he was 8 years old with his friend Mike. Still in existence. First mystery is still not solved. So, then he wrote these books about the EMU Club, short for Exploration Mystery Unbelievable Club. And you guys are going to have an unbelievable time with this presentation because he is going to be joined on stage by the owner of An Unlikely Story. Do you guys know who that is? Yeah, Jeff Kinney. So Jeff is going to come up and introduce Ruben. So please give a warm welcome to Jeff Kinney.
Hi everyone, how are you doing tonight? Thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is actually a really special night for me because Ruben is really one of my cartooning heroes. I so look up to him. He's so diverse in his talents. He's so smart and so funny. And so I actually wrote to him a few months ago just to kind of express my admiration and to see if maybe one day he would come here. And at the time, I didn't know about the EMU Club. Is that EMU? Right. But now I've read both books. I love them both. I think he's so talented. Now he works in cartoons for grown-ups and cartoons for kids. And we're just really lucky to have Ruben here tonight. So what we're going to do is Ruben's going to give his presentation. And then I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to interview Ruben. Maybe we'll do a little bit of drawing together. Sound good? All right, thank you guys for coming to Plainville, and let's welcome Ruben Bolling.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Wow, so great to see everyone. Oh, we'll get set up here. All right, so, well, before I get started, I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming. So I'll start on this side. I want to thank you for coming. You look great. I think you're going to be a great audience member. Maybe I should thank you all collectively instead. So thank you all for coming. But before I get started, I want to thank An Unlikely Story for having me. A lot of times I come to these bookstores and I find out that the owner of the bookstore has a hobby, which is really cool. And the owner of this bookstore, I found out, has a hobby. He's tried his hand at kids' books, which I think is really cute. That's a fantastic thing. It's something called Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I'm not familiar with it, but maybe someday it'll be a hit. How many of you have heard of Diary of a Wimpy Kid? Okay, so something of a local Plainville hit. Oh, nice. Okay, the area. So, Jeff, I'm so thankful that you invited me here. I thought I would give you some pointers on how to become a successful author with characters that people will like. Oh, by the way, I see that he actually printed up his books, which is really a great idea. I always say, fake it till you make it, you know? It looks real. Okay, so I took the liberty of researching your books. And here's your character, Greg. Okay. First of all, I see a big problem here. Wimpy Kid. Kids don't like wimpy kids. They like confident go-getters. So, I thought what I would do is, I'm going to give him a confident pose. There you go. That's a character someone would like. There you go, first thing. Next, his hair. Kids don't like a few strands of hair. They like a full head of hair. This is going nowhere. No offense. So look. Doesn't it look better now? Lots of hair. Finally, kids don't like reading about boring everyday lives. They like, because they have their own boring everyday lives. They like fantasy and science fiction, so let's put some spaceships in. There you go. Maybe some lightning for a dramatic effect. There it is. Now that is a character that kids will like, and maybe if you make these changes, maybe you'll become popular outside of Plainville, maybe as far as Foxborough or Providence. You never know. So anyway, on a separate note, here's my book. I have to say now, I'm only kidding. I know that I won't be kidding. I have to say I'm kidding, because if any of you don't know that I was kidding, you're going to go through this whole thing hating me. And say, this guy doesn't know Jeff Kinney. He doesn't like his books. No, I love him. Okay, so, before I get started, I wanted to find out what kind of audience I got here. Just a show of hands. Raise your hand if you've either read a book or have never read a book. Okay, almost all of you. Okay, good. How many of you only raise your hands when the question is really dumb and makes no sense? Okay, a few less. And how many of you never raise your hands no matter what? Oh, quite a few. Okay, that's unusual. Okay, I think I know what kind of audience I've got here. So let's go on. I'll show you my books. I've got 2 books. They're the EMU Club Adventures, and I'm working on the 3rd and 4th. And I'll start by asking this question. What is an author? Let's break it down. A writer is someone who, what? An illustrator is someone who illustrates. So an author must be someone who authors. Correct. I author. I'm the guy who authors. Now, I know you're thinking, I know you're asking yourselves, you're saying, Ruben, why do you author? Who are you? Tell us your full story. Tell us your backstory. Tell us every little thing. What makes you tick? Thank you. Thank you for thinking that question, and I'll answer that. I author because, for 2 reasons. I've given this a lot of thought. Because I saw a monster, and because I have a faulty larynx. Those are the 2 reasons, and I'll explain that. I'll tell you the story of when I saw the monster. This is a true story, so you might want to sit down. I'll wait. I was probably about 8 years old. I was in my backyard, and I was with my best friend Mike, and we were doing whatever 8-year-olds do in their backyard. And we had a pile of logs in our backyard for firewood, even though I think I remember having a fire in a fireplace once my entire childhood. This is not my backyard. This is not my pile of logs, but I got this from the web. I just thought you might want to see what a pile of logs looks like. So it looked something like this, and we went behind the pile of logs, and we saw something really weird, and this is true. It was about this big, it was pinkish red, and it was kind of glowing, and it was pulsating. This is truly the way I remember it. It was like a blob. I don't know if you can see that picture of the blob. This is from a movie called The Blob. That thing eventually in the movie becomes so big it needs a movie theater. So we saw this, and we screamed, and we ran into my house, and then nothing happened. I don't know how nothing happened, but I think Mike said I have to go home now. I said, all right, see you later. And we didn't do anything about it. A couple weeks later, he came to me in school and said, do you remember that thing we saw in your backyard? And I was like, you know, I thought I dreamed that. We went back and looked for it, and it was gone. So now, for some reason, now that it was gone, we were interested in it. And I said, let's form a mystery club, and we'll solve the mystery of that blob and other mysteries. And he said, great, okay. So we have a mystery club. We didn't know how to solve the mystery of the blob because it was gone. And we didn't know how to solve any other mysteries because we didn't know if any mysteries existed. If someone robbed the local jewelry store, how would we even know? How would we even get to the jewelry store to look for clues? My mom would have to drive us and wait in the car while we looked for clues. And so we spent most of our time in the mystery club arguing over who's president. I thought I should be president, and Mike did not agree with that logic. And that was pretty much our mystery club, arguing about who's going to be president of the mystery club. It's not a great story. The blob thing is interesting. but nothing happened. So hold on to that story about the blob. I'll get back to that. Now I'm going to tell you about a problem I had when I was a kid. I loved stories. I loved kids' books. I loved jokes. I loved making people laugh. But the problem I had was I had a stutter. Anyone know what a stutter is? You know what a stutter is? It's like sometimes there's a word, you're right. Sometimes there's like a word that I would say, if I wanted to say problem, I wouldn't be able to say problem, I would say problem. Or I would just say problem. I didn't like this problem. I didn't say it on every word, but it was sometimes, and it was pretty often. And the ironic thing is, it would happen when I would try to tell a joke. When I would say the punchline to a joke, that's when I would stutter. And it was really a problem for someone who was funny and tried to be funny and made his friends laugh, that every now and then this would happen, especially when I was uncomfortable. So, what causes stuttering? Everyone do this. Everyone go like this, going, ah. Ah. Now, what you're doing when you do that is, there's a thing in your throat called the larynx, and it's closing, and then you're opening up to say, ah. I'm going to show you what a larynx looks like. Wait. There's the larynx. All right. So the larynx closes, and then you go, ah, and it opens. Just to be really gross, I'm going to show you what a real larynx looks like, but only for a second, then I'll go back to this. Oh, gross. So what happens is, when someone stutters, the larynx tightens up, and it doesn't let the person who stutters say the word. It just stays tight. Try doing this. Try saying, ah, but this time don't release it. Just go. That's what it feels like to stutter, I think. That's pretty much it. It closes and it won't open. So why does the larynx tighten up? That's a great question. I got to thank myself for asking that. It was insightful. It shows I'm paying attention and thinking about this. So that's my question. And the answer is, I think for all of us, when we get nervous or focused, certain muscles in our body tighten up. For some people, it's their stomach or their back. Some muscle tightens up, and no one would even notice, maybe not even the person whose muscle is tightening. But for stutterers, the muscle that they chose to tighten up when they're nervous or focused is the larynx, and it just stays tight. So I think that's why I got interested in writing, because it was a way for me to be funny without stuttering and ruining the joke. I could write it out, I could draw it, I could do the whole thing and show everyone, but I didn't have to actually say it. Now, I know what question's on your mind right now. You're wondering, what's for breakfast tomorrow morning? And I'm not going to answer that question, because how would I know? I'm not your caregiver or your guardian. But I will answer this question. If I stuttered as a kid, why aren't I stuttering right now? And the answer is, I mostly grew out of it, but the secret is I still can stutter. And if you're lucky, maybe it'll happen here at some point in the presentation, because it can still happen. I have ways of getting around it, but sometimes it still happens. So let's see. There I am, a kid who loves to draw, and here is a comic book I made when I was about 9 years old. You can see in the upper left it says in color partly. That's because I colored it and then got bored. And then added the partly in parentheses. And it's very weird characters. I also had a whole line of superhero comics. This is my main character, Yellow Jack. In the comic book of Yellow Jack, you see Yellow Jack fighting monsters. Where do these monsters come from? I figured that would be a question my imaginary readers would want to know. Here's another cover of a Yellow Jack comic book, The Fight for America. Somehow the Fight for America would come down to Yellow Jack fighting a guy with a big ear and a bandit on his back. So I would draw these comics. There's something in this comic that, as a professional cartoonist, if a kid showed this to me, I would say, you know, you have a chance of becoming a professional cartoonist if you really wanted to. Can anyone see what it is about this that would make me say, you know, you can actually be a professional cartoonist? What do you think? Yes. Well, that's true. So I copied. That's true. But really, is the art isn't that good. And it looks a little bit like him, but look at his leg is weird, and look at the giant's hand. It's the Hulk's hand. It's not so good. Anyone else see anything that I might see as something that would make me think this kid could become a professional? Is there a hand back there? No? Back there? Sorry. No? It's hard to see because it's not that. There's someone. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, over here. Sorry. Perspective. Is there perspective? I wish I knew perspective. He is smaller in the back. It's true. It's true. And, I mean, there are some good things with it. I'll tell you what. For me, my answer would be is right up in the upper right-hand corner. It says number 7. That's what it would mean. That's why I would say this kid, because that means I did 6 other of these, and I did more of them, and I had another line, the Cheetah Man, and I had all these other superheroes. I think for me it seems like this would show this kid is drawn a lot, and I think that's all that really matters, because in comics and writing and drawing and really almost everything else, it's not really about what your first try looks like, or your 12th or your 100th. What really matters is how often you try, and I should know because I'm still trying. You know, I think, and also that you're so inspired and so motivated that you'll just keep drawing, even though what you're doing falls far short of what you imagine it to be or what you want it to be. And I think that's true for everything. And for me, for many reasons, one of which is my stutter, one of which was that I loved comics. I would just love to draw all these comics. So that's the inspiring part of the talk. Now we can get back to the dumb stuff. I want to give you an idea of how I started the. Drop the. Here it is. How I came to the EMU Club Adventures. So I was writing and drawing as a kid. I grew up and I started that comic strip that you heard about called Tom the Dancing Bug, a comic strip for adults. And you can see that I've been doing this for many years. And here are some pictures from it. But you can see that I love kids comics. I love kids literature because I always find any excuse I can to draw pictures from kids literature or kids comics, even though it's a comic strip for adults. There's Trump as the Pokemon guy. And then Dr. Seuss. So, yeah, after I was doing my comic strip for a while, I had kids, and I would tell them stories at bedtime and at meals. One time I asked my kids, they said, "You tell us a story." I said, what do you want the story to be about? And my son, who was 3 years old at the time, said, Monopoly Junior. Because we had just gotten this as a birthday present. He thought that guy's name was Monopoly Junior. So that became, I told the story about that, they loved it, and that became our stories were always about Monopoly Junior. So when I wanted to write kids' books myself, I couldn't make it about Monopoly Junior. I don't think that Monopoly or Parker Brothers would like that. So I had to think of a kid's book that I wanted to draw that was my own, and I thought of that monster blob thing. And I thought, what if Mike and I didn't give up on the Mystery Club? What if we kept trying to solve that mystery? So this is the book, Alien Invasion of My Backyard. It's not about the blob, but it's about a similar thing. These kids are more persistent and adventurous than Mike and I were. They also argue about who's president of the club. But they start up wanting to find a mystery, and they can't find one, so instead, they try to solve a little mystery, an everyday mystery that any kid could have. They were missing their game console, and they couldn't find it. And they looked so closely at where that game console could be, they ended up uncovering an alien invasion. The idea of this series is that if you look really closely at any mystery, you can find a fantastic solution. The roster of the Mystery Club is Stuart. He's kind of a bragger. He's very emotional and excitable. Brian is his next door neighbor, who's really smart but kind of weird. Violet is his little sister, and there's a trick about her I'll tell you about in a second. And that's Ferdinand. We have a Ferdinand fan. And that's their dog. The book is full of plot twists and tricks, because that's what I like when I read a book. Like, on the cover, you wonder what caused the alien invasion, what's behind it, and the answer is right on the cover. Once you've read the book, then you know that the answer is right there. So I love tricks like that, and so there's a lot of plot twists. I can't tell you I don't want to do any spoilers, because that could ruin the story, but I will say this. Stuart tells the story. He's the one who says, I did this, we did that, then this happened. And he's what's called in the author trade an unreliable narrator. That's two big words. Unreliable means that you can't rely on him, that he doesn't always tell the truth, and narrator is the person who tells the story. So Stuart is the big brother, and he's the narrator. And what if the narrator tells the story but he doesn't tell the truth? An example is, he's always saying that his little sister Violet is such a pest. But when you read the book, when you read it carefully, you realize she's an incredibly valuable member of the club. He gives her no credit for it, and when he tells the story, he doesn't give her any credit. But she's more brave than him. She's more valuable than him. She's smarter than him. So this is the second book, Ghostly Thief of Time. And when you read this one closely, Violet becomes even more important, and Stuart continues to give her no credit for it. In this book, they try to solve the mystery of it. Does anybody notice when school's about to end and you look at the clock and it goes really slowly? Why does time go slowly when school's about to end? And they look so closely at that mystery that they find also an incredible answer to that involves a ghostly thief of time. And I'll tell you a secret, I'm working on the third and fourth books, and Violet becomes even more valuable in unexpected and surprising ways. These books have been so much fun to write and to talk about. I get to talk to people like you about this. People send me pictures of their kids reading the books. Look, on the bottom right, that's a kid who lives on an actual emu farm. That's an emu there. I just love that. That was just great. To recap, I offed because I saw a monster, and I have a faulty larynx. Author is a strange word. I think it's a fancy word that separates what I do and what Jeff does from what you all do. When you write or draw or illustrate, I think we're all authing. There is no difference. I was authing when I was drawing Yellow Jack comic books. And whenever you tell stories, I think you're authing. So I hope you'll all get to solving the monster blob mysteries in your life, solving all the little mysteries, and looking so closely that you find the incredible, fantastic solutions. And with that, I want to thank you all for coming. I thank An Unlikely Story and Jeff for having me. This has just been a wonderful time. I really thank you all for coming.
And now we're gonna take a second to set up the stage. Here we go. Let's see how this goes. And you're going to get interviewed, and you've gotten none of these questions in advance, right? So this is fun, right? This is the first time. Okay, so you're over there, and I'm over here, and grab my questions. There we go, excellent. So thank you again for coming out, and this is really fun for me because I'm a fan, and now I get to ask you the questions, the things I'm curious about before these guys get to ask you questions.
Fantastic.
Does that sound good?
That's great.
Okay. And you see that I write all my questions in cartoons.
Pictograms.
That's how I do it. It says excited. I am very excited to meet you. I wanted to know what made you decide, was that a big jump for you to go from writing cartoons for grown-ups to cartoons for kids?
It was a big jump, but it was something that I was trying to do for a long time because I was really getting tired of drawing comics for adults. I get very bored of adults, and I don't get bored of kids. And I got so energized by all the kids stuff that my kids were reading, your books, all the books through history, and I really wanted to get into that. So yeah, it was actually pretty easy.
And so your stories, EMU Club, are set in the suburbs, and it seems like that was I was wondering if that's because that's where you grew up. Now you live in New York City, is that correct?
Yeah, I live in the city. My kids are city kids. So they don't know about the suburban lifestyle and about things like waiting for your mom waiting for you in the car. But I grew up in the suburbs.
Yeah.
I was a suburban kid, and that's where Mike and I found that monster blob. And so I felt as though the backyard was where it was like our universe.
Yeah.
And this first book takes place almost exclusively in the backyard. The second book expands their world a little bit and goes to their school, and the third and fourth keep expanding it. But I wanted that first book to be about like an adventure that could just be in the backyard.
And I noticed that Brian actually has OCD, right? He always has to wash his hands. That's not a spoiler, right?
No.
He always has to wash his hands. I was wondering, do you have any tendencies like that where you have to, count the bathroom tiles or something like that?
I do that. I once got, nothing terrible, but I once got some bad news when I was holding a certain kind of pen. And that kind of pen became bad luck, and I don't like to touch it. It's those big pens that are solid white and round. I don't like to touch those anymore. And now I like any other kind of pen. So, and I'll do stuff like that. I try to not do it. I try to not indulge myself, but not let myself. I think if I let myself, I could go really far with it. So I try to make myself. But the pen thing, for some reason, I allowed myself to just continue on.
That's not so bad. I notice, your books are the mystery of. There's always a mystery of the blank blank. Right? And I thought we'd give the audience a chance to give you an inspiration for your next book. So I wanted every kid to think of 2 words, right? Every kid think of an adjective. Do you guys know what an adjective is? A descriptive word like ugly or brown or, something like that. Heavy, something like that. And then think of a noun. Or actually, a plural noun. Okay, plural. So think of a noun, which is a person, place, or thing, with an S at the end, okay? And I'm going to go around, we're going to see if we can give you the inspiration for the next book. Does that sound good?
Yeah, could you give an example? Like, so that everyone, like you said, the ugly sneakers.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is, something like that.
You have just guaranteed that when I ask them, they're all going to say the red sneakers, the blue sneakers.
I infected it.
By the way, before we get this going, I have to say that everybody loves to hear about somebody else's dreams, but I'm going to tell you the nightmare I had last night. I didn't know you much at all before you came out tonight. I didn't know exactly what you looked like. I saw a few pictures online, but I had this dream that you came onto the stage. You're this really big guy, and you were constantly rubbing your belly, right? Like your bare belly, right? And then you bought really expensive gifts for 5 kids, and there were hundreds of kids in the audience. You threw them out to the audience, and then kids were fighting, like tearing each other to pieces over these 5 gifts. And then some little girl got a gift, and you stole it from her and gave it to another kid. Boo, let's hear it.
I'm a monster. Guys, let's make this happen. Let's reenact this dream. Freak Jeff out.
So you guys have your adjective and your plural noun, right? So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to see if we can put these together. You ready? Your adjective. Okay, here's a grown-up fan of yours.
I'll get the full thing. How about the mystery of the Wimpy Kids?
Sounds like a good word. Okay, how about an adjective right here? You have an adjective?
The mystery of the ugly fox.
The ugly fox.
That's
Okay.
mysterious.
And you?
The mystery of the smart bomb.
The smart bomb. Yes. Can you guys believe that when we were growing up, there was a movie that was very popular called The Nude Bomb? And it was exactly what it sounds like.
Get smart.
Mystery of the hairy sandwich.
The hairy sandwich. That does sound like a mystery. Okay, how about these guys right back here?
The mystery of the stinky toilet.
There's no mystery there.
Mystery of Jeff Kinney.
That, I don't like stinky toilet and then Jeff Kinney being. If we're recording this, can we edit that out? Okay, Ruben, how about you can't take a single phrase that somebody came up with. You have to put two things together that you heard here. What do you think would work?
What was the last one?
That was the mystery of Jeff Kinney, but we had the stinky toilet right before.
I was going to say stinky Jeff Kinney. That would be.
Thanks a lot. Okay, but there's a twist.
It would be a mystery.
Something I
It
noticed.
smells fantastic.
Thank you. You got a little too close. So here's.
A lot of hugging before.
So here's the thing. I've noticed in your books that you lead us down one path, and then there's a big twist, right? In both of your books. So the mystery of the stinky Jeff Kinney starts off with you think you're, gonna find out about why I smell, but. There's the butt, and can you tell me what happens? What's the twist?
It's the butt. I know my audience. What could it? Let's write this story. So we have Jeff is stinky. However, why would he be stinky? And then, oh, wait a minute. Maybe from another dimension. That smell is actually fantastic. So it's not a bad smell. It's from Jeff's from another dimension, and in his dimension, that smell is wonderful.
Drives the women crazy, right? In a good way, right? Okay.
There's a twist.
I like it. Okay, so let's talk about your work for adults. I was going to say your adult work. That's not where we want to go. So you won the Herblock Award. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Herblock Award.
So you are our first. That's a National Cartoonist Award. You are our first Herblock Award winner on stage, so let's give it up, right? And Tom the Dancing Bug just turned 20, so I'm going to get visual here. This is going to take me a second. All right, it just turned 20. That's correct, right?
No.
No?
No.
I just read an article.
The article must have been 7 years old. Will it still work if it's 27? You shouldn't have asked if it's true. I was going to go along with it.
I was just stalling, actually. So hold on one second. I want to say congratulations, but I think I am going to kind of embarrass you with some old art here. So let's see if this works.
I've already shown Yellow Jack, so
Yeah, that was actually good.
it can't get worse than that.
All right, you think this is going to work, Kim? Is it just going to override? No. Can you pull that? Oh, it's doing something. Yes, now you guys get to see all my private pictures.
Wedding pictures.
We had Chelsea Clinton here last night. Oh, I blinked. That's not good, right? So, in that very spot was Chelsea Clinton. All right, I'm going back to all photos. You guys can look at my private photos. I went to, 27 years ago. Now, this is one of your earlier cartoons right here, right? This is Crazy Mice, right? And I love it. This is exactly my style of humor. I love it. We're crazy mice. Ha ha, I'll say. No, I mean really crazy. Oh, it's not so funny. No, it's not. I love it. That's great. And so your style has really changed over the years. Is this how you would draw this drawing today?
Yeah, I still do this type of drawing. This is what I call, I do a thing called Super Fun Pack Comics, where I just do a lot of these really weird comics. I always say that when I do a lot of my other comics, I try to be as smart as I can be, and in order to write these, I have to get as dumb as I can get. I have to get my brain into a spot where nothing makes sense. I enter a fugue state, and I just write a bunch of them that are weird.
I love them. And my goal as a teenager and as a young man, I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. And that, you know, I wanted to be up there with Burke Breathitt and Bill Watterson, Calvin and Hobbes, Charles Schultz, who did Peanuts. That's what I wanted.
Me too.
Was that what you wanted? You wanted
Yes,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, when I started, that was what and then I realized, when I started, I tried to be just like them, and I realized I couldn't write like them, and I just sort of found my own voice. Sometimes you find your own voice by trying to imitate who you like, and the way that you fail is who you are.
I really love that. I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist, and you ended up not being a mainstream cartoonist, right? So you ended up, what would you call it?
Well, it was called alternative, in alternative news weeklies. In the Boston area, there was one called Boston Phoenix, which I was never in, but I was in the Village Voice, was like the primary kind of, the adults will know, the kind of newspaper that I was in. So it was alternative, and those are encouraged us to be weird, and also larger, multi-panel, that didn't have to fit into that Peanuts style.
And my favorite comics of yours are the ones that start with a really thin premise, which means it's a really kind of almost like a lame idea, but then you tell a whole comic, you know, you do your whole comic on that one idea. Can you tell us about Ant-Man?
He was in Super Fun back. So Ant-Man, when the movie Ant-Man was coming out, for some reason it struck me funny to have, I guess maybe in this area you pronounce it Aunt-Man. Like it's A-U-N-T. So he was bitten by a radioactive aunt, and he got all the powers of an ant. So he has this costume, and he has a purse, and I don't even remember any of the jokes. I think that he's good at remembering birthdays. There's a fun, yeah. I did a number of those comics. That was really fun.
I love this. I love how you make fun of other cartoonists, like how a lot of times mainstream cartoonists, they get lazy, right? They get a little bit lazy, and they kind of copy and paste the heads. Sometimes maybe that happens in Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And so here's a comic that you did that I really like. Photocopy funnies. Want to go bowling? No. Want to go for a drive? No. Want to stay in this position? Sure. Same drawing all 3 times. I really like how you skewer everybody. One of my favorite comics of yours is, I'm going to get the name of it wrong, but it's the comic that has an ending every day.
Oh my God, yes. It's called, there's like a thing that goes on top, the comic strip that has a finale every day. Thanks to the readers of the comic strip that has a finale every day. This is the last strip. It's been a great run. John Scully. Tomorrow, goodbye again. These characters, I just made up these characters. And then my syndicate had the idea, they didn't even have this idea of actually running this every single day online. And there is a web page that runs just this, every day. And every day it gets these weird comments. It's been like 3 years.
It really frustrates people, right? They're like, what? I don't get it.
Furious.
So I really love this kind of absurdist humor. I have a book called the Do-It-Yourself book, and I have some comics in this style. So I have Trevor the Talking Sideburn, right? And it's like, how many jokes can you actually get out of that one idea that there's this guy whose sideburn actually talks, and then, you know, everybody thinks it's the main guy, Trevor, or actually no, Trevor is the talking sideburn. So Douglas is always getting in trouble for things that Trevor, the sideburn, is saying. Something that I think is really interesting is that you know, your cartoons, I can see a real love of comics, right? So I'm going to pull this one up. Here's Robots versus Bunnies, right? And this, if I'm guessing this correctly, this is a Bazooka Joe style?
You know, I truly let for these kind of things, I let my subconscious just take over. And you're probably right, but it was not conscious at all. I just drew like some guy. It's Robot versus Bunnies. Robots versus Bunnies, how can that be a fair fight? They're very small and timid robots.
But you have this, okay, so you have this reaction from the guy that you can't see on screen anymore, right? And that's very, 1940s style? So do you just have like books upon books of old comics.
I love old comics, and I do make fun of them, but I do it out of love. I mean, I really do love this stuff. I don't know why this guy has an aviator's
Right.
on or helmet. I don't even know what that is. But I love old comics, and even with the ones that I make fun of some, but I really do love them.
And I noticed that you're really good at imitating other styles, and that's not easy to do. So this looks like 1978 era Marvel comic. Is that correct?
That's, let's see, 7 by 78. Well, you want to get into it. Kirby by 78 had gone to DC and then back to Marvel. The late Kirby was very weird. But yeah, I do like, this is the cartoonist who I'm imitating, this Jack Kirby, who made up the Avengers with a partner. And he used to like draw these little dots and have these like weird squiggles, and so I decided I thought of this idea, but it was a great excuse for me to try to draw like Jack Kirby, who's a hero, and I had so much fun doing it. But yeah, it's probably 70s Kirby at some point.
And I know some of your style. Here's a comic that most people aren't familiar with, right? It's Donald and John, a boy presidential candidate and his imaginary publicist, which is, and we're not going to get political tonight, but this is obviously Bill Watterson style.
Oh yeah, I did a bunch of Trump cartoons using Bill Watterson style, and I still would cringe to think that he ever would be angry about that. But it was amazing. I had so much fun. I mean, I was dealing with a very serious subject to me, and something that was kind of dark, and yet to put it in this beautiful playground that Watterson had created was kind of joyful and cathartic. I'm getting bound to talking only the adults.
So I'm very curious about how creators' minds work. Okay, and so I'm going to pull something up here. Let's see. Okay, so I'm really interested in how creators' minds work. Like, it seems like I read your comic a lot, and one of the comics that you wrote is just about being on an airplane and so how somebody tilts their seat back just a little bit, and now it's taken up some of your space. So you are drawing from experiences that are very ordinary and extraordinary. But how do you, did you come up with new ideas on your drive up here or on the train ride up?
I drove, and no, it's hard for me to come up with ideas, and so it's hard for me to. I have to be very focused. Like I looked at your desk upstairs, and I said, "There's too many distractions here. I could never work like that." I work mostly I basically work in a closet, a windowless closet, and I just have to have I have to be focused. I have to have the paper in front of me, and I have to be. Things generally don't just come to me. There are exceptions. And when something just comes to me, it's usually my best stuff. But yeah, usually it's just a lot of work, and it's a lot of work to make it look like it's not a lot of work, because it's funnier when it's not.
I think you're the first creator who I've asked that question to that had the same answer as I would, is that for me, the ideas do not flow at all. I'm just constantly trying to figure out a way to come up with an idea. And so I was going to put you on the spot and have you draw, actually, make up a comic on the spot, but that might not work. But would you mind drawing for us to see how one of your drawings comes together?
Oh yeah, sure.
Maybe one of the kids from the EMU Club, or...
Yeah, I'd love to draw Stuart.
Okay, great. So here we go.
Here's Stuart.
And is it my two cartoonists step on stage, they get two chairs, and nobody sits in either one of them. So I'll sit down.
I'm too excited to sit. Let's do, I'm not used to, I usually draw with a pen.
So you can go backward. If you mess up, you can hit the upper left-hand corner, and it's an undo.
Okay.
See it? See that little arrow? Yeah.
So this is not so good, but you can see it's a luxurious, beautiful head of hair. And let's do the eyes next.
And so, did you say you usually use pen and ink, pencil and paper pen?
I do. I've really almost never done this.
Yeah? Okay.
It's very old school. And then I scan it in, and then I manipulate it on the computer, but I don't draw like this. So this is going to come out looking weird. This is a weird Stuart, but I think I'm saving it. Let's get the hairline down. Get a shadow there. And he's going to wave at all the kids. All right.
He's got kind of what do you call those, chicken wings? Yeah, a little bit of flab under the arm there. Bingo wings, right? Is that what those are called?
Stuart, how did you give him that? Okay, I make this arm, wait a minute. Keep going back. Yeah, okay, I'm going to make this arm really muscular. There you go, Stuart.
All right, that's excellent.
Okay. Give me 6 pack.
That's awesome.
You can look happy with that.
Okay, so now that kind of leads into my next question is, I like this idea of the thin premise. And so here we have a boy with one muscular arm. That feels like a Ruben Bolling comic. What does anything spring to mind right away? Okay, you've got one regular arm, one muscular arm, so
he must have, he used unbalanced barbells.
So you find out the mystery of it all is that he has
That's the plot twist.
one big one and one small one. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go into the crowd here, and they're going to ask you questions or questions about cartooning in general. Are you ready for that?
I would love it. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Here we go. Raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, the most inconveniently placed person asks a question.
When did you publish your first book?
The first book came out in 2015, so just less than 3 years ago. And the second book came out almost right after it. I wrote the first book, and they said, we want the second book right away. So they gave me a crazy deadline. So I worked like crazy to meet that deadline, and then when I handed it in, they said, oh, wow, you actually made the deadline. No one ever makes that deadline.
Okay, and you do have 2 more books coming out. I'm very excited about that.
Yes.
Keep the Yellow Jack books.
I do still have, I don't think I have all of them, but I do have them. I don't know what to do with them. Maybe I should sell them online. They're so bad. Once you read them, they're just poorly written. I made them up as I went along. I would change the story as I went. Because literally no one read them. I didn't think that anyone would read them. Do you have them back there?
How old are you?
I just had my 24th birthday. I'm 55.
What was the deadline?
The deadline, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I had I had sent them this story, and they wanted it done, I think it was right after the holidays, because I remember working all through Christmas of 2014, working so hard I wanted them to think that I was a professional kids book writer. So if that's what kids book writers do, write that quickly, I had to do it. I found out it was unnecessary.
I have a question. I'm a speech pathologist, so my question is, did you have a speech therapist when you were kids? If you did, what would you tell her now?
I did not have a speech therapist then. And my parents weren't sure what to do about it. I got one, I went to a stuttering seminar as a young man, and they taught some exercises, but it never really took, and it just got better and better as I grew. What I would tell a speech therapist, the whole thing was really a mystery to me when it was going on. I think what would have helped is if I understood the mechanics of it, that larynx thing, so I could understand that I needed to relax that. I'm not even sure what the prescription is for stutterers now and what people do for it. I sort of grew out of it, and now I have little tricks to stay away from stuttering. One of my tricks is if I think of a word I'm going to stutter on, I can kind of tell what's going to happen. I think of a substitute word, a synonym, that I can use instead, so no one even knows I was going to stutter. And that's given me a really good vocabulary, because I have to have a whole bunch of words I can use just in case. That's good.
How do you get your supplies?
I did not go to art school, which you probably can tell. So I knew nothing about supplies when I became a professional cartoonist. So I would go to art stores and ask them, like, what do you buy to make comics? And I have no training at all. So I found out what I use. Now I have my stuff, now I get it online. But when I first started, I had no idea. My first comics were drawn on copy paper, on just printer paper, like this. This is actually why my adult comics are in this shape, because this is the paper I was using.
Were you proud with your final copy in the Christmas of 2014?
Was I proud
Of the book.
Oh, I was more proud of doing these books than I think almost any of my adult comics, because I had never written stories this long. And I would be writing sometimes, and I would be like, wait a minute, how about if this happens? And then that could be why they went there. And I'd be like, yes, I'm alone in a room, like really psyched. And it was so much fun. It was great.
What do you read?
Diary of a Wimpy Kid. All the books over and over again. I like to read a lot of books. I like to read, grown-up books. I read a lot of kids' books. I'm trying to think of what I'm reading now. I'm reading a book by a friend, a non-fiction book. I love reading, and I read a lot of comic books too. I read comic books from when I was a kid, and new comic books, really everything.
When did you get your big break?
I'm still waiting for it. I think it's a lot of little. I never really had one big one. It was a lot of little ones, especially in the newspaper cartooning business, where you get one newspaper. Wow, I'm in one newspaper. Then you get another one, and then another. Then the Village Voice, and then the Washington Post. And so it always felt like it was a very gradual thing that there was never one moment. And that's something to remember. It's like it's not always like in one big moment. It often happens in lots of little ways. I'm sure, yeah.
We're about the same age, and back about 20 years ago, there were a lot of cartoons like yours, adult cartoons, in the alternative weeklies, the DC City Paper, Austin Phoenix, so forth and so on. Now that is kind of dried up, do you find it harder to get exposure for your comic, or do you think that the internet has all but taken over for the exposure that you used to get?
What a sophisticated question. That's my career in a nutshell. Yeah, I was in all those newspapers, and then the business changed, and they all went out of business or canceled all their comics, or just canceled mine. And so that was a really hard time. And I had to figure out how the concept was going to survive. And now it survives online. I'm on a bunch of websites, Boing Boing, and Daily Coast, and Go Comics. And I have a subscription service. That's really what has been great. A subscription service where people sign up for the comic strip, and I email it to them a day before it's published. It's the Inner Hive. Please join. Reasonable rates.
So, Ruben, what we're going to do is there are actually more questions than we have time for. So what we're going to do is, if you have a question for Ruben, or me if you run into me in the hallway here, please ask Ruben in person in the signing line, right? I can't recommend, well, I was going to say I can't recommend it enough, but that sounds like a negative. I love the EMU books. They're really, really good. They're really, really funny. My favorite thing about your main character is the voice. That's so hard to do, is to get the voice of that character right, and you did such a good job of it. So congratulations.
No, coming from you, Jeff, that
is I'm going to give you one shot to $10,000 if you can guess what my favorite comic of yours is.
He'll actually pay that too. This is like one of those half-court shots at halftime.
He's working too hard. I'm starting to sweat right now. Yeah.
Let's see.
$5,000.
Actually, but I'm stalling because I can't think of a single one of my comics right now.
My favorite of yours is Frankenstein's app. Can you explain that? Do you think?
Okay, I put it on the spot. It's Frankenstein. Well, it's a joke about a joke where there's a certain kind of person who, when you say, "Oh, Frankenstein's my favorite monster," they'll say, "Actually, Frankenstein was the scientist. You're talking about Frankenstein's monster." And so I did a thing where It's so silly. It's embarrassing to even say it. It was Frankenstein makes an app, and he calls it, what is he calls it, Frankenstein?
It's called Frankenstein.
Actually, it's Frankenstein's app.
Way to end for us to end on a dud of a joke. Okay, but it's very funny if you read it. Sorry to end that way, but I just want to tell you I love that comic. It's hysterical. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. This has been really special for me. I hope it's been special for you as well. I hope you kids will read Ruben's books because they are awesome. They're really funny, and it's really hard to get that right, and he does. So let's give it up for Ruben.
Thank you. Good job. Fantastic. That was a great time.
Thank you. And what we're going to do now is Kim, the grown-up in the room, is going to tell us how